Make no attempt to reload your device. You are now entering the Hellhole.
Welcome back to the Hellhole. Welcome back to video games. That's somebody else's line. It's all happening, I guess. I don't know. Christmas is coming. Games are selling you stuff. Developers are selling you stuff. There's a whole heap of trailers that just dropped. A whole heap, a couple. But I'm interested. I thought, let's get on. Let's talk about what's going on. Critique, review, all that kind of stuff. The Hellhole Halloween Spectacular is in the archive right now, so if you're interested, you might like to go check that out. If you like variety like me, we're going to be talking about a variety of things, although a certain genre will be well represented. But if you like variety, I checked out 5 horror games, some new, some old, some that I never played before. It's in the archive right now, so go check that out. Let us move on to another thing that is kind of relevant to the Hellhole right now. The first trailer, technically not a November trailer, but late last month, Chiller's Art dropped the trailer for The Kidnap, their latest game, which I just played through last night, and you can find in the archive right now. A complete playthrough that was not without its challenges. There were moments of confusion, moments of illness, technological failures. Was it a cursed stream? Did the Kidnap curse us? Hey, who am I to determine that? We're here to talk about the quality of games, and I thought the Kidnap was pretty good. You might have seen I played Inunaki Tunnel earlier, which was an earlier entry from Chiller's Art, which I believe, I keep saying I believe, I'm not verifying this, but I think it's 2 brothers in Japan who make these games. Obviously there are other contributors, voice actors, and the like. There was a credits list last night. I enjoyed the game. I mean, you check this out, the trailer is very representative in terms of the style and the atmosphere that these games have, which is the big appeal, I think. I think my slightly erratic and confused, befuddled playstyle did not necessarily represent it to its fullest, but it's definitely worth checking out. I thought this was cool. It was fun to sort of play a new release, because generally I'm not doing that, but I thought, why not? Let's move on. You can see we got a beautiful Parisian landscape here. This is from one of the games we're here to talk about. Let's start first with this Tekken 8 trailer. All the characters are coming back. I mean, that's kind of a Tekken tradition. You kind of expect it. Tekken brings back most of its characters each game. Generally, they don't change wildly, although sometimes there are some interesting changes. I think of Jin Kazama in Tekken 4 when he sort of was unlearning the Mishima style and sort of plot lines about going to Australia and training and stuff like that, which is kind of fun. This is all, I mean, what do you say? It's all pretty safe, it's all pretty standard, and it's all pretty enticing. I think Tekken 8 is looking really good, and it's good to see these characters back. Panda. The Panda and Kuma continuum is fun. I'm a little less into Zafina. Li Chaolan's probably the one that I'm most excited to see back. He's not doing any goofy gimmicks. A little less excited about the robots. I don't know. Li Chaolan's the big one, and Jin Kazama. Devil Jin. Devil Jin, obviously, a bit of a stalwart, a bit of an icon for the series, and good to see. I think Tekken 8's looking good. I don't know what you say about these characters. They're all as you would expect them. The roster is shaping up really well. Looks like we're going to get more on November 12th. November 2nd. That's now. We might as well move on, I guess, to that, because I don't really have a lot more to say about that. The classics are back. Good to see Devil Jin. Devil Jin's a favorite, obviously. But this is the real exciting thing. This one surprised me to no end, and I think it's really cool. We're going to see like a gamut of the state of fighting games and fighting game content right now. So that's going to be interesting to see as we go. You can see here Parisian landscape, Paris, France, wonderful. Can you believe that there isn't a French fighter in Tekken? That's kind of amazing. So that's definitely filling a void that should have been addressed much earlier in the series, I would have thought. It surprises me that there's no like French savate fighter, because that's usually your go-to. You're collecting martial artists with nationalities, a la Street Fighter. I would have thought a savate fighter. I don't know that savate is factoring significantly into Victor Chevalier. Is that right? I think this is great, and it blows my mind. Vincent Cassel is the voice. French actor. You would have seen maybe in the ocean, somewhere in the Ocean's films. Was in a recent version of Beauty and the Beast that was pretty good. I don't know. He's like a mainstay since the 90s. I'm thinking of The Crimson Rivers, which was sort of like an internationally aimed adaptation of a book. I think there's a TV series, you might know, The Crimson Rivers, which had Jean Reno in it as well. Sorry, not the TV series, but the movie has Jean Reno. And there's this really gratuitous martial arts fight that is not from the book, as far as I know. Vincent Cassel's like, they're cops. He's going to get clues. Checks out these punks, and the fight is literally scored by the sounds of Virtua Fighter in the background, which is it's not a brilliant fight, but there's a martial arts connection with Vincent Cassel. I really like this character. I like that they have recruited Vincent Cassel, and you can see the character feels tangibly inspired by Vincent Cassel, which I think is an interesting detail. But it's not just the actor. It's not like there was a game that had Jean Reno in the game. Bruce Willis. There was a whole. I'm thinking of games from 23 years ago. But here in the now, we got a brilliant new addition to the Tekken landscape. I like the elegance of the character. There is obviously. Japan obviously has some sort of interesting relationship with France, and the elegance of France and the sort of the style and romance of France has been sold. But I believe there is I forget what it's called. There is a psychological phenomenon for the culture shock of when Japanese tourists go to France and find it's not everything they imagined. And I believe, it sounds like a ridiculous myth, I believe there is a hotline that Japanese people can call in France when they're experiencing the shock of the reality of France. It's very amusing. Let's not be francophobic about it. We're here to celebrate France, because this is the first French fighter in Tekken. Again, blows my mind. France, a little underrepresented in maybe in general. I'm trying to think. Street Fighter's got a few French characters now. Abel was a curious addition, but it does feel like there is a Franco void in some of these fighting games, considering the tradition of savate. As a Panzer's kickboxing, I think there was a bit of a French representation there. That's a long time ago, though. I like this character, so I'm presumably some sort of assassin or secret agent, clearly involved in some sort of clandestine activities. A character of some maturity, bit of a silver fox thing going on. Interesting, he's got like the laser katana, he's got guns. I don't have a problem with that, but guns in fighting games is a little less exciting generally. weapons in Tekken, you know, Yoshimitsu's been bringing a sword to the fist fight for a long time, so you can't knock him for that, but I don't know. I'm generally very happy. I think Victor's a great new addition to the series. I just think it's really cool, and it's cool to sort of tap into that sort of... It feels like it's part of that, like, Luc Besson French film, you know, like Secret Agents. Maybe, I think of the tradition even of, like, Fantomas and the sort of the gentleman criminals, the sort of romantic French criminals. You know, there's that tradition of, like, the cat-suited femme fatale who's sort of prowling the rooftops. There's a lot of that kind of stuff in literature and film, and it feels like Victor is very much participating in that kind of tradition, but also adapting it for Tekken and taking it somewhere slightly different. There is sort of, I do think of, like, I guess that French-Japanese relationship, however that culturally works out, there is a little bit of like I feel like it goes both ways. Obviously, the elegance and the style of France is something that's maybe exported to Japan, and I feel like France obviously has like an interest in sort of martial arts and anime and things like that. There's a great tradition of sort of French anime influences and reception and things like that.
Peggy 16.
I guess parkour sort of comes into that as well. There's sort of like a French interpretation of sort of martial arts elements and things like that, and the name is, I don't know. I'm very pleased with this character. I don't know that I have any brilliant insights to add. You know, Tekken characters are all pretty good. They all work. There's a great, if you go searching for it, there is a behind the scenes little featurette with Vincent Cassel, and he's talking about how he got into Tekken with Tekken 3, that was the game that really made me love Tekken. I played Tekken 2, and I guess I was aware of the first Tekken, but I wasn't immediately taken with Tekken, you know, thinking of myself as like very much an established Street Fighter fan from Street Fighter 2. Double Dragon was like maybe the first big fighting game for me, but Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat, things like that. And the transition to 3D was obviously like a major milestone in the mid to early 90s, the 3D graphics, the polygons. But with that came slow, floaty gameplay, and so Tekken 2 really didn't sell me, but then Tekken 3, it just took it to another level. It was a little bit quicker, greater variety of characters, even better looking graphics, designs, all that stuff. Tekken 3 is the one that sold me. It sounds like it's the one that got Vincent Cassel as well. He was an Eddie Gordo fan. He's got some sort of relationship with practicing capoeira. I think you can see him doing capoeira in one of the Ocean's films. I don't know if that's like Ocean's 12 or 13. I wasn't really into those movies, if I'm totally honest, so I'm not going to speak with any authority to that. But again, there's this interesting sort of Vincent Cassel relationship with martial arts. He probably could have gone into Virtua Fighter. I don't know that anybody's thinking about the Crimson Rivers film that greatly, so it's not a great, you know, inconsistency or anything like that, but it would have been amusing to take, you know, the history of that scene and put him in a Virtua Fighter game. I don't know that Virtua Fighter really does that, but, and I mean, Virtua Fighter is an inspiration clearly for Tekken. Tekken kind of got away with it, because Tekken's almost a knockoff of Virtua Fighter, particularly like at the beginning. I guess the decline of Sega around that time and the elevation of the PlayStation was really integral to Tekken's success as well. And I still think, I mean, you can see it's on Xbox, it's on PC. I still like to think of Tekken as a PlayStation game. PlayStation has surrendered its exclusives, really. But I like to imagine that it's still kind of, in spirit, it is a PlayStation game. And I think a lot of the professional players and stuff, you know, competitive players, PlayStation is generally the preferred platform, I think, for fighting games. It's my preferred platform just as a matter of self-respect. I don't know. Is there anything more to say about Victor? Is it Chevrolet? I don't remember. It's cool. I mean, look at it. It's cool. It's interesting. He's not directly modeled. You can see he's not directly modeled on Vincent Cassel. He doesn't have Cassel's very sort of characteristic eyes and brow sort of thing, but you can see elements in there. It feels like the design is slightly influenced. I just think it's a really good addition. No complaints. No complaints. I'm into it. I think Tekken 8's looking great. We might as well move on, I guess. There's not much more to say. Secret agent guy. Interesting, the sort of like they're alluding to some sort of relationship with Raven, and he's talking about. That's one interesting thing. We gotta touch on like story and how the characters fit in the story and all that. There is something about influencing world events, controlling world events in his dialogues, which are in French now because Tekken has finally cashed that check for years. Since Tekken 3, before Tekken 3, the dream was always that these characters would all speak their native languages. It's happening. Tekken 8's doing it. Everybody's talking in their own native tongues. It's brilliant. I love it. That's how you get a guy like Vincent Cassel involved, presumably because they're dedicating, local voice talent to these characters. Presumably, by and large, I don't know. I mean, some of it could be sourced locally. Does that matter? Nobody cares about that. That's an issue for guilds. We as the consumer, we just want the product. I love that Tekken characters are all speaking their native tongue. And so it's interesting, though, because I wonder, to what extent is this character manipulating world events? Is this just getting involved in sort of like the corporate espionage of the Mishimas and all the corporations that are involved in sort of perpetrating these? Only we can control the world's power balance. So I wonder what that factors in. Is this like an Illuminati guy or something? Are they going to go there with Tekken? I mean, there's some of those sort of like conspiratory elements, and you've got. I think I saw Dragunov was right at the start of the Legends trailer and stuff, and it's just interesting the way these sort of like world events bubble away. The less inflammatory world events, shall we say, a little bit safer for fiction, maybe. Keeping in mind the state of the world right now, things are not going great everywhere. Things are going great in Tekken. Things are going great in the Hellhole. I don't know that I have any great revelations, really. It's nice to feel pleased. It's nice to see a new character, a trailer, and just be on board pretty quickly. I think that's really cool. Good job, Namco. Let's move on to... We're kind of moving through, like I said, we're seeing the different flavors and styles of fighting game content. So Street Fighter 6 is already out. We're in downloadable content phase. And, well, what do you make of this? There's like some... I don't know what to make of that, like, Mike Hagger skin. That's bizarre. Muscle suit, Halloween costume, Mike Hagger. Sodom, to me, is the draw. Sodom is who I've used, for our little box art on the left. I'm excited to see Sodom from Final Fight. These characters already factored in, like with Street Fighter Alpha. I forget which one got Sodom in there. But it's interesting. So no Guy, no Cody, and for some reason Mike Hagger can never actually be in Street Fighter. There's a lot of references to him in the game. I was surprised. So if you go to the archive and search for Hellhole Street Fighter, you'll see I've been playing through the world tour slowly but surely at my own leisurely pace. Got to get back to that soon. But we had the train fight. I knew like Metro City is a big factor, but it's interesting how much Final Fight is in Street Fighter 6. There is so much in that world tour mode. You notice the pieces that are missing. I don't know like what's going to show up. I don't know how far I am. I'm just going to taking it as it comes. But Sodom was a big one that's missing. So I guess your character, they're putting it more into the creator character rather than releasing. This says to me that Sodom won't be DLC. I don't know if that's correct. Maybe they can parlay the character attire into a playable character as well. I don't know. I don't really know what Street Fighter's 6 is, specifically Street Fighter 6. I don't know what their philosophy right now for downloadable content is. It seems like with this game and the last game, there is a lot more emphasis on new characters, which is sort of a different way to go with DLC. You think of DLC as like trying to exploit people's existing interests, trying to expand the game with what might be perceived as missing pieces, or at least exciting pieces that weren't included. I don't know if Sodom is getting anyone excited, but yeah, it seems like Street Fighter 6, it's kind of like, Goki, aka Akuma, is in there. And I forget who else is coming back for the DLC. But character-wise, there's a lot of new characters. It's sort of... They haven't just done like a final fight pack, which still could happen. And basically, that's where I'm going. I wonder, could a final fight pack of characters still happen? Could we see Hager, Cody, Guy, Hugo, Poison? Could those characters come back? Maybe Abigail. I thought Sodom might have been a good one because we haven't seen Sodom in a little while. Hager and Sodom as actual downloadable characters might have been a little bit more exciting. At least the costume stuff, it looks good. It's not disappointing. The muscle suit thing is weird. Is really weird. I don't really get that. I didn't really get the Blanca suit that's unlocked pretty early. This is fun. I like the little, the guy. Oh no, my car, which has its own history involved with Street Fighter as well. It's weird. I'm not overly excited about this, but I think what they've given in this lot of DLC, at least it's sort of amusing. It's good at what it does. It's not essential, but it is sort of building on the Final Fight foundation that's already in the game. It's giving you something. It's good. I think the Sodom gear is the standout. Other stuff I don't really care about as much. Profile cosmetics and things like that don't particularly interest me. I don't play online that much. Like all this stuff. Stage music is interesting. Stuff like that. I don't know. At least it's kind of, it's good. I like that Street Fighter is essentially, when it comes to, I would make the sweeping statement that Street Fighter is not sullying itself with guest characters. But of course, Street Fighter is riddled with guest characters throughout its history. It's just that they come from Capcom franchises, predominantly Final Fight, which I like. I feel like that's building something. It's constructing something. It's giving us something without... It doesn't, how do you say it without invoking visions of eugenics or something? But, it's just so much more enticing and cohesive to have these characters expand the Street Fighter universe rather than inject these things that really can only distract, and they can't make any real lasting contribution. Whereas I feel like the growing tapestry of this sort of Capcom universe, which is not a huge focus, it's not. I feel like it's a nice balance of building this sort of sense of like a shared universe, which is of the times, but has been going on for a long time now. Building the relationship between these games, the characters and the properties, but it's not, it's not overemphasized. They're not exploiting it in a tacky way. Although maybe Muscle Suit could be called a little tacky. I don't know. Will we ever see Mike Hager just in a Street Fighter game? Is there an end game here? They've put the Sodom gear looks like Sodom. The Hager gear does not look like Mike Hager. So does that imply that maybe the end game for Street Fighter 6 is finally getting Mike Hager in this game? In a Street Fighter? He was in obviously he's a Final Fight character, but he was in Muscle Bomber, aka Saturday Night Slam Masters. And on that note, I think it would be cool to get some of those characters in Street Fighter. El Fuerte was kind of a little bit... It kind of reminds me of the Lucha guy that's in Muscle Bomber. And I'm going to get confused between English and Japanese names. I think by and large I preferred the Japanese names. Was he El Stinger or Stingray? El Fuerte kind of reminded me of that guy. I thought it would be cool, maybe if they were a tag team or something. I still think a comeback from Muscle Bomber, aka Saturday Night Slam Masters, would be really cool. Back in my days writing on 1UP, doing like the 1UP blogging stuff, I did sort of like try to book tried to book the Capcom wrestlers in like a wrestling promotion. I didn't get very far. I did a couple of months, but I think a Capcom wrestling game that brings all those characters back, put Zangief in, you know, put Rainbow Mika, Hamageddon, all those characters, put all the Capcom wrestlers in a new game, throw in some new characters. I think that would be great, particularly if it wasn't just like the way Muscle Bomber was essentially like another 2D Street Fighter style game, but it had wrestling components. It was like in a ring kind of thing. If they made a fully fleshed out wrestling game with like storylines, programming, maybe a creative wrestler thing, kind of like, you know, the template is sort of Fire Pro Wrestling, and the SmackDown game is kind of built on that kind of stuff. That'd be a great new Capcom franchise. I don't know if they could sell it. There's probably, I mean, AEW are in the wrestling game business now. Is there enough of a market for a Capcom wrestling game? I think the wisdom has generally been that there isn't. I think that's why that never happened. But they also didn't think Street Fighter had a market. And then Street Fighter 4 came back and proved you do it well, everybody's happy. This is cool. I mean, I'm not going to go out of my way to buy this or whatever. Is it free? I don't think it's free. I presume it isn't free. Is anything free these days? I don't know. But if you were so inclined, I think that's it's good enough. It's well done. We move on now to perhaps the coldest of the fighting game expansions. It's been a long time since I have been as disinterested in Mortal Kombat as I am right now. Mortal Kombat 1 is just like, it's so utterly riddled with things that are just disappointments. The fundamental premise, I mean, I've been talking about this through trailers, and if you're on the Hellhole, you can see I tried to come up with my own storyline. It's still in progress. I think we're up to chapter 6. I've not abandoned that, but we're doing the Mortal Kombat 1 Lucifer timeline, which is sort of like just a presentation of an alternate timeline, a different story mode. But there were so many disappointments in this game, and honestly, like, Omni-Man is, I couldn't be less interested, I don't think. I am, you know, if you've been around town, if you're in the Hellhole, you know I'm a comic book guy. I am working through like the Invincible trades, but you know, like even as a comic guy, Invincible didn't really excite me. You know, like basically, look, I've been playing fighting games for most of my life. I've been reading comics even longer. That's just more of my life in terms of measurement. But like, so Invincible, you know, it wears its influences on its sleeve, and that made it really hard for me, you know, as a long-time reader to get into it. It feels a little bit like it's more for kids, it's for new readers, and it's clearly succeeding in that. The animation is clearly taking it places, but the comic was already a phenomenon. You know, like the comic, it maybe didn't catch on immediately, but once it did, sort of relatively early on, then it became, you know, the comic du jour. It was the comic that was getting people, particularly like new readers. It was getting kids to check out comics and get into that stuff. So clearly there is a huge audience, a whole lot of Invincible fans. There are clearly going to be people who are excited about Omni-Man, but like, this is the official gameplay trailer, I should stress. If you go to MortalKombatOnline.com, you can check that out, but you'll also be able to find from there the New York Comic Con reveal trailer, which was sort of like splitting hairs, you know. And part of the, like, we've seen the train fatality, we've seen the head popping, we've seen the, you know, the ground and pound. We've done all that. So this trailer is kind of quite underwhelming for a whole lot of reasons. More technically minded players will probably be observing details in the gameplay that I'm not really as interested in. It's interesting, I guess, you know, I'm more interested in like the conceptual elements and stuff, and so it's sort of interesting that they've leaned on super speed quite a lot, because it's essentially like, how do you apply this character? How do you make it interesting within the systems of the fighting game? And there's always that sort of, maybe too much consternation about you know, like a Superman type character, the superhuman strength, you know, who could beat him? Nobody could touch him, sort of thing. Don't worry about it. It's a fighting game. You don't need an explanation. It's just about playing the game, and I like to think of these martial arts characters as like capable of fighting above their weight, using skill, using techniques to match these kinds of characters. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, but you know, how do you get this guy who's essentially like, he's just an evil Superman basically, which is a tired cliche, particularly now. It feels like in the last like 15 years there are more evil Supermen than there are good Supermen. Very tedious, and particularly challenging for Mortal Kombat, because we've just had like Injustice, which to me is like, it's the toilet water of DC Comics basically. Found an audience. Again, these dirtbag kids, you gotta get them with like extreme violence and what if Superman like used his powers to rip a guy's head off? Ooh. Grow up. It's just really tedious. Believe in good guys. How about that? Let's just have some good guys. We got plenty of bad guys in real life, in fiction, plenty of bad guys. Let's aspire to be good guys. How about that? Instead of these the shift of the adolescent power fantasy has sort of gone from just having the power to do things to now it's this pissant, like, be a bigger dirtbag kind of thing. Let's not dwell on that too much, but it's irritating. I'm an adult. And even when I was a kid, I didn't have a lot of time for that kind of shit. Like, it's weak, man. Just be good. Just be a good guy. Why not? Do good. Go into the world and do good. In any event, yeah. The challenges of going from, like, Injustice. We've had 2 Injustice games. To me, it's a small blessing that we don't have a third one right now. That we went from one Mortal Kombat to the next. Obviously, results have been mixed to disappointing. But, you know, how do you make Omni-Man distinct from Injustice Superman? There's clearly some similarities. It seems like they've lent on super speed. I like the little, I think there's a move where he's like dodging. So you're sort of, I guess are you initiating like a dodge? I don't know. You know, it's not that I'm not paying attention, but I don't want to pay attention. I'm not into this. The presentation of the character is clearly very good. He's got like the lines, the dialogue, the intention is there. There's some of the super speed. I guess he's also, is he the big rock thing? Is he flying into space and coming back with like a meteor or an asteroid or something? What's the definition? I always forget. He's flying around. Yeah, I mean, that's cool. He's like grinding him in the ground. He's flying around. They're emphasizing some of his aerial abilities. I guess there's still aerial combat, but I feel like Mortal Kombat is not as aerial as it used to be. Armageddon tried to push aerial combat as like as a deliberate mechanic, but I feel like the days of like fighting in the air are behind us. We're not flipping around the screen all the time, which is a good thing. I think that's a good thing, absolutely, because it's a more mature, more sophisticated fighting game. It does feel a little bit like the old days where like Mortal Kombat is not as exciting right now. Street Fighter's pretty solid. I think Tekken is feeling a little bit more exciting. Obviously it's got the juice of not being out and worn out at this point. Tremor is here obviously as a cameo fighter, which is cool. I maybe infamously within Mortal Kombat circles have always sort of championed is a strong word, but I've always indulged in special forces. I maintain that, and one day I might play it on stream, I'm not sure. I maintain that Mortal Kombat Special Forces is not a bad game, has never been a bad game, but it is clearly a compromised game. It is clearly a barely finished game, and we already know, like, that was known probably when it came out. I mean, they promoted Sonya. Sonya's not in the game. I understand the disappointment from that, and absolutely, that's a criticism of the game. But if you actually sit down with the game, it's fundamentally fine. It's a fundamentally decent premise and game. It's underpopulated. What you're doing, like, it's underpopulated with characters. There are times where you're walking around, it feels bizarrely empty, but it also touched on like the Black Dragon clan, and we've been told like through Kano, through Jarek, the Black Dragon Clan as this big organization, and we only ever see like 1 or 2 guys, which was a problem for a long time. Not a huge focus, but back then you could only get so many characters into the games. Obviously these days we do well with like DLC and expanding the franchises and stuff like that. But Special Forces was a great platform to expand into new territory. Don't sleep on No Face, man. No Face is cool. I'd love to see Tazia come into one of these games because she's kind of cool. And there was a little bit of excitement when she showed up in the Mortal Kombat X comic with Jarek. I think they were a cool little tag team. Like, that worked really cool. In any event, Tremor was always kind of the standout. He kind of benefited from that thing. Like, anything that looks like a palette swap ninja gets a free pass amongst MK fans. It's a little bit less of a problem than it used to be, but clearly it's still a problem. Bravo to Mortal Kombat 1 for acknowledging the fact that he was never brown. You play Special Forces, you cannot tell me that Tremor is a brown ninja. Technically, Scorpion's the only ninja. We won't worry about that. But he was never brown. It's a very yellow brown. He's not mustard, but it's sort of like, he's a buff Scorpion, basically. He's a buff MK4 Scorpion. They've put him in the classic sort of ninja attire, a little bit more MK2. Not sure why that is, because it's not really something the character is associated with, but fair enough. But they haven't gone into the full brown. He looks a little light, which I like. And he's got the rocky skin, and he's doing, like, I like the boulder move, and he's got like a thing where he can summon, I don't know what kind of rock that is, something. I don't think it's jade, but maybe it's jade, and he can return the projectiles. That's cool. He looks a little short to me, and a lot of the cameo fighters look short, and I don't think it's just a perspective issue. I mean, Goro is obscenely short. Motaro is obscenely short. In classic Mortal Kombat style, I think all the characters probably have to fit into some preset boxes, and I think that's what we're seeing. I think clearly the cameo fighters have to be within certain parameters for whatever reason. I don't really know why that is, but yeah, everybody's short in this game if they're a cameo. I can't get over Goro. He's so tiny and unimpressive looking, and that kills me. Goro is a legend, an icon of the series, should have more respect. I got mixed feelings too about giving Tremor the rocky skin. I mean, this is cool and it's nice to get a good look at them. And because Omni-Man is floating, it doesn't emphasize the heights as much. And I even wondered there in that pose, is Tremor scaled up a little more respectably? I think of Tremor as a big guy, and because like in Special Forces, and they maintained it from Mortal Kombat X when he finally entered as a downloadable playable character, he's a big guy, and I always thought really that was the hook, because in Special Forces he's one of the sub-boss characters. At the end of a stage, he's a stage boss basically, and I guess he does the Jax style ground pound, and I think he grabs like a bit of rock out of the ground and throws it. It's good that they expanded upon it, and I think expanding upon it into sort of rocky moves is a good thing, like sediment or whatever, whatever it is, all the different rock types. But I think they went too far, and they're calling him an elemental. I think that's a little bit too far. I thought he would have been a good character to build more as more of a grappler. They've made Reiko a little bit of a grappler in this game, which to me is, it's weird. But then you've got General Shao, which is a whole miserable sack of questions and disappointment. Because essentially Reiko's got like a few of his own gimmicks, but it would have been cool to make him like the mini Shao Kahn, the playable Shao Kahn. But we've got a playable Shao Kahn, so you're not going to double up completely. But the grapple thing I don't really get for Reiko. I thought it would have been cool if that was kind of Tremor's thing. It used to be Suhao's thing. No rainbow for Suhao. Maybe one day. Again, vilified unfairly. There's an interesting concept there. I think Suhao. He's Kenny. He's Kenny from South Park, and he's Frankenstein's monster. You have him get his ass kicked and then come back stitched together with weird, Frankenhao. That's what I want to see. I want to see Frankenhao, because he always gets his ass kicked. Don't obliterate his head. Have him lose limbs, impalements, and things like that, and then come back with more like cybernetics and stitch together. Literally give me like Frankenstein style stitches on his limbs and stuff. Just go nuts with it. A Mortal Kombat Frankenstein. Why not? I think that'd be really cool. That's the power of Suhao. That's what they got to do. I don't think this is necessarily the game to do it in, though. What is this game good for, though? I just fundamentally don't like the premise. It's not exciting. It's not exciting. The gameplay is maybe the main success. The Cameo Fighter system is kind of like tedious and the designs are disappointing, but the way it expands your moveset and changes characters and the different combinations, it's like an interesting advancement of the variation system that came in with MKX and sort of stuck around with MK11, but not really. It's an interesting variation of that where it's sort of like you know the character that you're fighting, but then there's an extra element where they might have a deficiency, but the Cameo Fighter picks up for it, and essentially you're creating new moves for your characters. It's kind of interesting. I wish the designs were a little bit cooler. I'm not into the Spirit Halloween palette swap character reference stuff. I don't really get it. But them's the breaks, you know. I'm not excited about Mortal Kombat 1. Great arenas, some good music. I mean, you're checking out this background. This is really cool. Great, always good to see the Wuxi Academy and the Shaolin and all that stuff. And it's cool that like Liu Kang's the big hero again because he fell out of favor, and that was so disappointing. Don't throw away that. Again, Liu Kang can't be around because he's a good guy. Good guys don't have to be boring, but let's have some good guys. How about that? On that subject too, like Jax isn't in this game. I thought it would be. I'd like an explanation. Why are Jax and Sonya not around? I don't know if that's in the game. Probably is. I'm probably not paying enough attention, but it feels like a lot of those questions aren't really addressed, which is why I'm doing that Mortal Kombat 1 list for timeline stuff. Come up with my own stuff. But again, like if Jax was here, cameo-wise, it's not going to work. But I always thought it would be cool because like Street Fighter and even Tekken, these fighting games, these martial arts games, they have a great tradition of creating the rival and having the characters. Give me a built-in rival, and give me it generates just a little bit more sense of story and event for characters, and it fleshes out the characters a little bit sometimes. It can be quite good. And so I did like the idea of Tremor as like a counterpart to Jax, where they maybe share commonalities. They can both do the ground pound, but then maybe Tremor's more of a grappler, and maybe Jax is a bit more of a brawler. That kind of thing would have been interesting. I feel like Mortal Kombat is kind of, we have these rivalries, and I don't know that they really develop rivalries very well. I'm sure there are some, but it's sort of like, I mean, these games, game to game, nothing is of consequence. And this Mortal Kombat 1 is like the biggest, the mythology that has been so important to Mortal Kombat and the storylines and all that stuff. You know, what does it matter if you're rebooting constantly and if you're doing this weird, sort of nonsensical Mortal Kombat 1 reboot? I don't know. There's the combat pack, so there's more of this coming. Not real excited about guest characters. Guest characters as a principle, I'm not excited about, and I don't entirely get it. I guess, you know, shut off the part of your brain where you're interested in the property itself and say like, well, what if like Predator could fight Alien, or Predator could fight Scorpion, or Predator could fight Triborg, you know, because we can't just have Sector and Cyrex and all that stuff. But I guess there's a part of me that gets that, particularly if you're not heavily invested in these games. But wouldn't it be nice to be invested in these games? Wouldn't that just be nice as a principle of pop culture if the priority was to do something well instead of doing something like something else? And I'm sure I've said it before. I'm sure I will say it before. This is the state of like pop culture, and it's miserable. And it's one of the factors in why everybody, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people, particularly people who have an active interest in pop culture and have had an interest over time, whether it be video games, movies, etc. There is a sense that the culture is just weaker right now. And I think that's a major factor. It's over the course of the 2000s, 2010s into now, it was increasingly about making everything like something else, or doing these half-assed remakes which is such a cliche. Like, and you know, you think of, we just had Halloween, horror movies just went down the remake hole, and what did we gain from it after like 10 to 15 years of remakes? What do we? Nobody likes the remakes. The remakes suck. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody's still, if they are still interested at all, it's in the classic stuff. Just build, just construct, and if something doesn't quite work, like say, you know, Halloween 6 doesn't necessarily work, or 7 or 8, you know, look at it, see if it can work. If elements of Mortal Kombat 11 didn't work, you know, like, just move on from it. It doesn't matter. Just move forward. Always be moving forward. Emphasize what you need to emphasize. Construct new things. Do all that kind of stuff. And Mortal Kombat was good at that for a long time. People have, you know, there's mixed feelings about like the 3D era, although one of Mortal Kombat 1's small hooks is that it brings back some of the 3D era stuff. I got mixed feelings about how they've done it, but it's there. Actually, some of it's pretty weak. You know, Havoc is jumping to mind, and Havoc is a character that I don't like at the best of times. But if you like Havoc, are you happy with MK1 Havoc? What is this character? He's just there. I mean, although, full disclosure, DLC is probably coming, and maybe Havoc's day will come. I'd like to think the rumors that Havoc is actually Dai Rao will not be true. I'd like to see Dai Rao get his day in the sun. Dai Rao? You know, you almost... The Order and Chaos stuff in Mortal Kombat was such a tangent that it's difficult to focus on. It's not in this game, even though Havoc is there. It was always this aside where there's only like a few characters. There's like 4 characters who are relevant to the Chaos Order aspect of things. It might work better if they had like an ongoing comic book, but they're not doing that, and that's a blessing because I got other interests, man. I don't want to spend all my time on Mortal Kombat. I love Mortal Kombat. You guys know that. I think it should be self-evident. I love Mortal Kombat, and this Lucifer timeline crap that I'm doing, this fan fiction. You know, if you know your Mortal Kombat, you're gonna see that I like this stuff, and I'm aware of details and things like that. But the Chaos Order thing is tricky to work into. So I think Dai Rao, you want that to be part of the fabric of his character. That's part of the texture. But he's almost like the wandering samurai. And again, going back to the concept of like having strong rivals. For years I've been saying, like, get Dai Rao up against Kenshi and let's have some samurai stuff going on. Let these be the competing swordsmen. I think, you know, that tombstone drop that everybody used to trash, you know, that move where like Dai Rao just sort of like drops. And I think there was some sort of balancing issue with that. There was always balancing issues with things. Don't worry about that. Emphasize the swordsman. He's essentially a Ronin. He's like a masterless samurai. That's what we go with. And he's lost his faith because he was a Seidan guardsman who was shunned. It all went wrong, and now make him like this mercenary swordsman and have him go up against Kenshi. I mean, that's the stuff I want to see. I don't know. I mean, martial arts movies maybe aren't as popular as they used to be. That's a sad thing. You know, give me some good martial arts stuff. That's what I want to see, and that's what I want to see from Mortal Kombat, because that's where it started, and that's probably that's going to be it's going to get old real quick. But I'm going to keep hitting that. At least Liu Kang's back in the foreground. I like that. We can have our Kung Fu God, that kind of stuff. How well that all came together, I don't know. Should we move on? Have I moaned enough? I don't know that I'm really honing in on anything really great right now. Let's end on a high note, or something like it. Let's end on a cheery note, at least. Colorful note. From MK1 to MK8. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. You know, I love the Sega. I'm a Sega guy, but this looks cool. Mario Kart's always good. I think Super Mario Kart is the best one. That's my favorite one. But look at this. This is cool. Colorful Rainbow Highway. Rainbow Road out of Wii. Again, this is sort of a little bit more like, it's a little bit Street Fighter 6 in that it's utilizing references to things that already exist and bringing them into a new game. But, you know, what do you want? Yeah. It'd be great to have I think it'd be great to have more new tracks. Although again, like, I'm not playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. dropping money on a Switch is a little bit more than I'm comfortable with it and able to do, but I think this looks cool. If I had it, I would totally play it. And having like, you know, the Donkey Kong stuff, the Wii stuff, Daisy Circuit, Piranha Plant Cove. Is that a new one, or is that Mario? What's Mario Kart Tour? I don't even know what that is. They got this. Oh, look, see, they got the Super Mario Kart Castle. That's cool. Or a version of it. That's cool. Rome Avanti. That's cool. What is Mario Kart Tour? I don't actually know. You gotta drop a comment or something. Educate me. Give me your opinions. This can be a discourse. This doesn't have to be one way. It's not just me shouting at clouds, you know, that's kind of stuff. But I think this looks fun. You know, this is cool. What do you got? A bunch of characters? Sure, why not? They're not in it. $25. That's actually a bit much, I think. That's a little overpriced. Is that $25 just for Wave 6? Or is it for all the DLC? Come on, Nintendo. Come on, Nintendo. Is that... Maybe I should have done some research. I should have informed myself before I started talking trash. In any event, if you're involved in this stuff, this looks cool. I don't know. I wouldn't spend a lot of money on it. Certainly not $25, you know. That's like a quarter of a new release game, and even then you're thinking like... Actually, no. I'm getting currencies mixed up now. It's too much to spend on a few tracks, but that might not be what this is. Look at that. I like that. That's really cool. The wacky perspectives, and you're seeing like the layers further down. You're seeing like, is that planet Earth or something? You're out in space. You got the rainbow highway looking cool. That's a really good looking rainbow road too. You know, that's better than the original Super Mario Kart. That's cool. I think that's pretty exciting. I like Mario Kart. That's what we've learned. I like Mario Kart, and I like French secret assassin guys in Tekken. You happy with that? I don't know. Maybe I should have done a little bit more research. I feel like I haven't honed in on any brilliant observations or revelations. If you know these things, you're probably not going to come to me and necessarily expect that, but if you're new to these things, maybe you got something out of that. I don't know. Charizard is kind of new in the Hellhole, but it's something that I've been interested in for a few years, and I keep saying like I'm getting into PC gaming in a just a teeny tiny way. I like these indie games. I like these small games that I feel like aren't going to hurt my new computer. I got to use this for other things, man. You know. I like the Charizard games. They feel manageable. They're kind of fun. My representation of them is a little bit mixed. Definitely check out other players. Play it for yourself. I mean, the beautiful thing about those Charizard games is they're very cheap. I think there's still an introductory offer for the Kidnap on Steam right now, so you get like a 50 cents, $1 off. It's already a cheap game. I think it's like, I don't know, is it like $8 US, something like that? I'm not really sure. It's like $14 Australian. I got it for like 13. I got a whole heap of those Charizard games that I was interested in for a while back in a big sale. That stuff's kind of fun. I like the atmosphere of it. There's more things to discover too. I got to go back to the Kidnap because I've got a few ideas of how I could get those different endings. Maybe, you know, go a different direction at the branching point. Some of that stuff. Definitely check that out in the archive if you haven't. And if you're curious, the trailer's really good. The game's really good, and you can. With the sort of like the Let's Play format, go as far as you want, you know. Sure, it'd be great for me if you watch the whole thing, if you leave a like, if you leave a comment, if you subscribe. All that stuff helps me, obviously. That's really cool. But, you know, I don't want to compel people to do that, basically. Watch as much as you need, and if you're starting to think like this is a game you want to play, hit the pause. Go play the game for yourself. I don't know. Leave me playing in the background, but don't watch. Something like that. I don't know. What's the best solution here? Because I don't want to sell myself short. Apparently that's an Australian thing. I don't know if that's true. We're not good at promoting ourselves sometimes. We got to talk ourselves up a bit more. Not always true. There's a lot of assholes around. There's a lot of assholes everywhere, though. Is this appropriate discussion for Nintendo Switch with Mario Kart? Look at we got the Wiggler. The Wiggler's in there. Do the children want to hear me talking about whatever. Does anybody want to hear me talking about anything, though? What is this? This is all nonsense. It's all ridiculous. All of it. DLC is ridiculous. I'm ridiculous. Talking about this stuff is ridiculous. But you know what? It's fun. It's good to be interested. It's good to be a discerning consumer. Don't consume blindly. Have some thoughts. Determine good from bad. You know, don't just buy everything and then complain about it. Use your noodle. You know, determine and go seek out something else. You know, like I'm not excited about Omni-Man and Mortal Kombat 1, so I'm not worrying about that too much. In so much as I have to be because of certain obligations and a general interest in the series. Maybe I make an assessment about that, but I'm not playing Omni-Man. I don't think I've played any guest character, by the way. That's interesting. I'm not interested. I'll go play the Kidnap and see what that's all about. And it's kind of crazy too. You should check it out. Check out the Halloween Hellhole Spectacular as well. The Hellhole Halloween Spectacular. I could never get that right. I made it up. There is one from last year, but check out the one from this year. I've called it Part 2 The Revenge as a cute, obnoxious little reference to, like, you know, Freddy's Revenge or something like that. Maybe if I do one next year, we'll continue like the horror movie sequel titles. I don't know, but don't feel like you're missing a part. Part 2 is just this year's. For whatever reason, I don't want to put the year on it. I just feel like, nah, that's not what I'm doing here. And 5 games that I enjoyed sampling. Again, I went after things that I'm interested in, and I had a nice time. I'm a little bit unsure about Hades. You got to tell me what's good about Hades. Maybe I'll play some more. There's so many other things I want to get to, though. The trading card arc is constantly being threatened. You know, I don't want to go on about it, but if you see my little window, here's like a stack of trading cards. I got all this crap. And it might be fun just to have a little look and bring more of that pop culture into the hellhole. Expand, dabble into things. You know, I got this, like, there's a comic book hellhole playlist, but there's not a whole lot of comic books, and I imagine that could be disappointing if you're finding the channel that way. Initially, it was just about, like, the comic book games, the adaptations that I was playing. But it'd be cool to actually maybe get into some comic books. And occasionally, like, I do like to... I'm not a rich man, but I like to get some cool back issues and check them out. So maybe if I pick up some back issues, we come in here, we talk about it. We're talking about game trailers. You know, it's just fun maybe to talk about these things, and it's nice to reach out. Maybe I get to hear from you, you know. Don't be shy. Leave a comment in the archive. That's probably the best way, because sometimes I'm not seeing the chat. Last night I couldn't see the chat at all. The game was full screen. You know, sometimes it's a little bit distracting. I'm a little bit tired and exhausted, so I gotta maintain my focus sometimes. But you know, if you're in the chat, always say hi, because you know I'll acknowledge you. Make sure you hit follow, do all that stuff. I'm gesturing wildly because I don't know what I'm saying or where I'm going. We should wrap this up. Good to check out the latest games. There's clearly lots of stuff going on. I'm super excited about Tekken. I think Victor Chevrolet is a success. Tekken is building up a good track record, because it was a little bit underwhelming, and then like the last 3 characters in Tekken 7, Leroy and Fuckum Rum and all those guys, super exciting. Love it. Victor's a great addition. I'm curious about the story, all that stuff. Maybe we'll reconvene sometime with the games themselves or more trailers. Go like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. Do what you gotta do, leave a comment, and I'll see you sometime real soon. Adios, amigos!